This is you. Not the person watching this video right now, though yes, also you, but you in the cosmic sense. You who are the result of 4 billion years of accidents that went right. You who are made of star matter that gained consciousness and started asking questions it can't answer. You who won a lottery you didn't know you entered. Think about it. The odds of you existing, specifically you, are so astronomical that mathematicians use the word impossible when they're being generous. Every single one of your ancestors, going back to the first self-replicating molecule, survived long enough to reproduce. Not most of them, all of them. They survived ice ages, predators, starvation, disease, war, heartbreak, each other. They survived so that billions of years later you could be here, scrolling, watching, existing in the most materially abundant era humanity has ever known. And yet, why does it feel like this might be the hardest time to be human? Throughout history, humans have faced unimaginable horrors. Times so brutal that death was more common than comfort. Eras where simply surviving until morning felt like an achievement worth celebrating. So why do we, living in heated homes with food in our refrigerators and medicine in our cabinets, feel like we're barely holding on? This is the story of humanity's suffering. Not a competition of who had it worst, because believe me, they all had it pretty terrible, but a journey through time to understand something crucial about being human, that maybe the worst time to be alive is always now, and always has been. Because being human has never been easy. It's just been different kinds of impossible. Let's start at what might genuinely be humanity's lowest point. Not metaphorically, literally. The time when we almost didn't make it at all. Mount Toba erupts in what is now Indonesia. It's not just a volcano, it's a super volcanic apocalypse that makes every disaster movie you've ever seen look like a warm-up act. The explosion is so massive it blocks out the sun. For years. A volcanic winter descends across the planet. Temperatures plummet. Plants die, animals die. And humans, all of humanity is reduced to maybe a few thousand individuals. Some estimates say as few as 1,000 breeding pairs. We almost went extinct before we had the chance to invent the wheel, before agriculture, before art, before philosophy, before any of the things that would later make us think we were special.
And they did. Somehow, they did. These weren't people with survival guides or YouTube tutorials on how to outlast a volcanic winter. They had stone tools, animal skins, and something that would define humanity forever. A stubborn, almost stupid refusal to accept extinction. But let me be clear, surviving isn't the same as living well. Fast forward to the last ice age. If you're born during this period, congratulations. You've entered a world where nature is actively trying to kill you every single day. Imagine waking up, if you made it through the night, which isn't guaranteed, to temperatures that would make modern Siberia look tropical. Your average lifespan? 20 to 30 years if you're incredibly lucky. Most don't make it past childhood. You die from things we've forgotten are threats. A tooth infection that spreads. A minor wound that festers. Childbirth, which is basically a coin flip for both mother and baby. A twisted ankle miles from your group. A winter that's slightly colder than the one before. And the predators. See, you're not at the top of the food chain yet. You're clever, sure. You can make fire and sharp sticks. But there are things out there with teeth the size of your forearm that see you as meat that's learned to walk. You live in small bands of maybe 20 to 40 people. That's your whole world, your entire social media network, your dating pool, your support system, your entertainment, all contained in a group you could fit in a school bus. And yet, and this is what breaks your heart if you think about it too long, you create beauty. On cave walls, by firelight, you paint. You create handprints that say, I was here, I existed, I mattered. You carve figurines. You bury your dead with ceremony, with flowers, suggesting something beyond survival. You're trying to find meaning in a meaningless universe. You tell stories around the fire. About the stars, about the animals, about the spirits that might protect you or kill you depending on their mood. These stories are the first human technology more advanced than a spear. They're how you pass down knowledge, create identity, build culture. And then, after hundreds of thousands of years of this, of nomadic survival and daily terror, you figure out something that will change everything. You figure out farming. And that's when things get really bad. Wait, what? Here's something they don't tell you in history class. The agricultural revolution was, for most individual humans, a catastrophic downgrade. Think about it. As a hunter-gatherer, you're mobile. You work maybe 4 to 6 hours a day. Your diet is diverse: fruits, nuts, meat, vegetables, whatever you can find. You're relatively egalitarian because nobody can accumulate enough stuff to become powerful when you're constantly moving. Is it dangerous? Absolutely. But it's honest work in a way. Then you settle down. You plant crops. You stay in one place. And suddenly you're working 10, 12, 14 hours a day. Your diet narrows to mostly grain, which is nutritionally worse than what you had before. Your bones show the change. Archaeological skeletons from early agricultural societies are shorter, weaker, marked with signs of malnutrition and disease. You're living in permanent settlements now, which means you're living in your own filth. Diseases that couldn't spread easily in mobile groups now have a stable population to burn through. Tuberculosis, leprosy, parasites that would make modern doctors weep.
But here's the worst part: inequality. When you're nomadic, you can't own much. But when you farm, you can accumulate surplus. And surplus means some people can control it. Suddenly, there are kings and priests and soldiers and slaves. Suddenly, there's a hierarchy where some humans own other humans. You're born into a world with rules now. If you're born a peasant, you die a peasant. If you're born a slave, and statistically there's a good chance you are, you die a slave. Your children will be slaves. Their children will be slaves. The cosmos doesn't care about your potential anymore. Society does that caring for you, and society has decided you're worth less than the person in the palace. And you build things, magnificent things, monuments that will last thousands of years, but you build them with your back breaking, your hands bleeding, while someone else gets to call them immortal achievements. And then there's war. Oh, the wars. See, when you're nomadic, conflicts happen, but they're small scale. But when civilization invents warfare as an industrial process. Empires rise, empires fall, and in between, millions die for reasons that will be forgotten by the time their grandchildren are born. You could be born in a peaceful city, live your whole childhood in stability, and then, one morning, an army appears on the horizon. An army from a place you've never heard of, speaking a language you don't understand, worshiping gods you don't recognize. And if you're lucky, they kill you quickly. If you're unlucky, well, conquerors get creative. They enslave you, sell you, make examples of you to terrify the next city into surrendering. Let's jump ahead. Rome, the civilization everyone loves to romanticize. Literally, we named the romanticizing after them. If you're born into Rome at its height, your odds depend entirely on the cosmic lottery of your birth. Born a patrician, you might live well, though you're still probably going to die of lead poisoning from your fancy plumbing. Born a plebeian, you're better off than a slave, which is damning with faint praise. Born a slave, you're a property. You have the same rights as furniture. If your owner wants to kill you for entertainment, there's a building specifically designed for that. Tens of thousands of people gather to watch humans and animals tear each other apart. The crowd cheers. They eat snacks. Children attend. This is civilization. This is what all that agricultural surplus and social organization bought, the leisure time to watch elaborate murder as family entertainment. And then there's disease. Not the scattered illnesses of hunter-gatherer life, but plagues that sweep through connected populations like fire through dry grass. The Antonine Plague kills 5 million people across the Roman Empire. The Plague of Justinian kills maybe 50 million. These aren't just numbers. They're families, children, people with hopes and dreams and stories all gone because microscopic organisms don't care about your civilization.
Rome falls. The Dark Ages begin. And if you thought things were bad before, you're born into a world that's forgotten how to do things. Literacy drops, infrastructure crumbles, the sophisticated trade networks that brought spices and silk and medicine fall apart. You live in a world of mud and superstition. Your village is your whole world. Most people will never travel more than 10 miles from where they're born. You work the land that your great-great-great-grandfather worked, and your great-great-great-grandchildren will work the same cursed plot. The church promises you heaven, at least. Work hard, suffer well, don't question authority, and maybe, you'll get paradise after death. It's the only hope you have, so you cling to it. Because the alternative is acknowledging that your suffering is random, meaningless, that you're simply unlucky to be born in a particularly terrible moment of human history. And yet, again, always yet, there's beauty. Monks preserve knowledge in candlelit rooms, artisans create works that make you weep, peasants fall in love, raise children, find joy in small moments. Because that's what humans do. We survive. We find meaning. We create light in the darkness, even when the darkness is overwhelming. But you know what? We haven't even gotten to the truly terrible parts yet. The 13th century. Genghis Khan and his descendants build the largest contiguous land empire in human history. If you're born in the path of the Mongol advance, well, how do I put this gently? You're about to experience what happens when military efficiency meets systematic terror. The Mongols kill an estimated 40 million people. That's roughly 11% of the entire world's population at the time. They don't just kill soldiers, they kill everyone. Entire cities are erased. The population of Persia drops by 90%. 90%. A historian writes, they came, they sapped, they burnt, they slew, they plundered, and they departed. That's it. That's your entire existence summarized in one sentence if you're unlucky enough to be born in Nishapur or Merv or Baghdad. In Baghdad, the House of Wisdom, containing hundreds of thousands of books, the accumulated knowledge of Islamic civilization, is destroyed. The Tigris River runs black with ink from the books, then red with blood from the scholars. But if you survive the Mongols, or happen to be born in Europe where they mercifully stopped their advance, congratulations, you've qualified for an even worse lottery. It's 1347. Ships dock in Sicily carrying spices, silk, and a passenger nobody ordered. Yersinia pestis, the Black Death. Over the next 5 years, this bacterium kills somewhere between 30 and 60% of Europe's entire population. Let that sink in. Not 30 to 60% of the infected, 30 to 60% of everyone. You wake up healthy, by afternoon you have a fever, by nightfall you have swellings the size of apples in your groin and armpits, by morning you're dead. Or maybe you're the lymphatic plague variant, or the pneumonic one which kills even faster, or the septicemic which turns your skin black while you're still alive. Entire villages are wiped out, bodies pile up faster than they can be buried. The living envy the dead because at least the dead aren't haunted by the groans of the dying anymore. The church says it's God's punishment. Jewish communities are blamed and massacred. Flagellants walk the streets whipping themselves, hoping suffering will appease an angry deity. Nobody knows it's fleas. It'll be 500 more years before germ theory. So you die, and you die thinking God hates you specifically. Europe recovers, eventually. The trauma echoes for generations, but populations rebound and society rebuilds. And then they build ships capable of crossing oceans. And that's terrible news for pretty much everyone who isn't European. If you're born in the Americas in the 15th century, you're part of civilizations that have been thriving for thousands of years. Complex societies, advanced astronomy, sophisticated agriculture. Then these strange ships arrive. The colonizers bring guns and horses and technology, but those aren't what kill you. They bring smallpox, measles, typhus, influenza,
Diseases your immune system has never encountered because your ancestors never needed to evolve defenses against them. Up to 90% of indigenous populations die within a century of first contact. This isn't war, this is biological apocalypse. Whole lineages, cultures, languages, knowledge systems, gone. You watch your family die of diseases you don't have names for. Healers who've treated every ailment your people have ever known are helpless. It feels like the gods themselves have abandoned you. And then, while your civilization is collapsing from disease, the survivors are enslaved, murdered, or forcibly converted. Or maybe you're born in Africa. Same story, different chapter. Europeans arrive looking for labor for their colonies, and thus begins one of history's greatest atrocities, the transatlantic slave trade. 12 million people stolen from their homes and shipped across an ocean in conditions so horrific that millions die en route. Packed so tight you can't move, lying in your own filth, breathing air so foul people suffocate in the hold. And if you survive the crossing, you're sold as property. Your name is changed, your language is forbidden, your culture is erased. You work until you die, and your children are born into the same chains.
Time moves forward. The 18th, 19th centuries. The Industrial Revolution transforms the world. If you're born in this era, you might think, finally, progress, technology, advancement. You're born in a factory town. You start working at age 5, 6, if you're lucky. You work 14, 16 hours a day in factories that maim and kill workers with casual regularity. Children lose fingers in machinery. Coal miners breathe in dust that turns their lungs to stone. The air is so polluted in industrial cities that life expectancy actually drops compared to rural areas. You live in tenements where entire families share single rooms, where disease spreads like gossip, where the Thames River is literally toxic from industrial waste and human sewage. Progress. The future. And then we get to the 20th century and, oh, friend, oh no. World War I, the war to end all wars, they call it. That should have been a warning. If you're born in the early 1890s, you grow up in a world that believes it's reached the pinnacle of civilization. Art, science, philosophy, commerce, everything is advancing. The future is bright. Then some archduke gets shot, and suddenly you're drafted into the most senseless meat grinder humanity has ever devised. Trench warfare. You live in a ditch filled with rats, rotting corpses, and your own terror. You eat, sleep, and shit in the same narrow channel that might become your grave at any moment. Machine guns make advancing suicidal. So you wait. For weeks, months, years sometimes. Just waiting in the mud for someone to order you to run towards certain death. Artillery shells that turn Earth into moonscapes. Poison gas that blinds and suffocates. Tanks, flamethrowers. Humanity has industrialized murder. 20 million dead. Maybe 30 million? Nobody's quite sure because the numbers are too large to count accurately. And just as it ends, the Spanish flu kills another 50 to 100 million. You survive 4 years of industrialized warfare, and then a virus kills you in your own home. 21 years of peace. 1 generation. That's all they get. Then World War II. Everything from the first one, but worse. More death, more destruction, and this time systematic industrial genocide. The Holocaust. 6 million Jews murdered in a systematic attempt to erase an entire people from existence. Roma, disabled people, LGBTQ+ individuals, political dissidents, anyone who doesn't fit the fascist vision of perfection. Gas chambers disguised as showers, crematoria running day and night, medical experiments that would make demons weep. This isn't random violence or collateral damage. This is evil, refined into a bureaucratic process. And then atomic weapons. We split the atom and immediately use it to vaporize cities. 75 to 200,000 people killed in seconds. Shadows burned into walls. Survivors who will die slowly from radiation over the coming decades. We've invented the power to end all human life on Earth, and we did it less than a century ago. Your grandparents might have been alive for this. The 20th century continues its greatest hits.
Korea, Vietnam, Cambodia, where the Khmer Rouge kills a quarter of its own population, Rwanda, where neighbors murder neighbors with machetes, Yugoslavia, where concentration camps return to Europe. Each one, people say, never again, and then again. And then you arrive at now. So here you are, the modern era, the safest time in human history to be alive, by almost every metric. You probably won't die in childbirth, probably won't die of a tooth infection, probably won't be eaten by a predator, enslaved by a conquering army, or burned as a witch for knowing too much math. You have medicine that would seem like magic to your ancestors, food that appears with a few taps on a screen, information access that kings and emperors couldn't dream of. By every objective measure, this is paradise compared to everything we just talked about. So why does it feel like you're drowning? Let me tell you what nobody tells you about modern suffering. It's not that it's worse than historical suffering, it's that it's invisible. You don't have a spear wound or plague buboes to point to. You're just tired, anxious, depressed, feeling like you're running a race where the finish line keeps moving. You wake up to an alarm that interrupts your sleep because your natural sleep cycle isn't compatible with capitalism. You rush to a job you need but don't love because the alternative is homelessness. You work 8, 9, 10 hours more if you're salaried, producing value for someone else's wealth. You come home exhausted and scroll through social media seeing carefully curated lives that make yours look empty by comparison. Everyone is succeeding except you. Everyone is happy except you. Everyone knows what they're doing except you. You're connected to billions of people and profoundly alone. You have hundreds of online friends and nobody to call at 3 a.m. when you can't stop crying and you don't know why. And here's the thing that makes it worse. You feel guilty about feeling bad because you know, historically, you have it so good. Your ancestors would have killed for your problems.
They feared lions. You fear your inbox. They feared famine. You fear failure. They feared plague. You fear purposelessness. Depression is epidemic. Anxiety is ubiquitous. Suicide rates are climbing. 1 in 5 people will experience serious mental illness. In the safest, most comfortable era of human existence, our minds are trying to kill us. Because here's what we've learned. Solving external threats doesn't automatically solve internal ones. You can have all your physical needs met and still feel empty. You can be objectively safe and feel like you're in constant danger. And unlike your ancestors who faced immediate, concrete threats, you face abstract, global ones. Climate change, nuclear weapons, pandemics, economic collapse, the slow realization that the systems you depend on might be broken beyond repair. You can't fight these with a spear or hide from them in a cave. You just have to know about them constantly. Every notification, every news alert reminding you that the world might be ending and there's nothing you can do about it. You're living through what psychologists call the loneliness epidemic. In the most connected era in human history, people report feeling more isolated than ever. You can video call someone on the other side of the planet, but you don't know your neighbors' names. Community structures that sustained humans for millennia, extended families, villages, religious communities, labor unions, have dissolved. You're free from their restrictions, yes, but you're also free from their support. You're just free. Alone with your freedom. Responsible for creating your own meaning in a universe that offers none. And maybe that's the real modern paradox. Your ancestors were so busy surviving, They didn't have time for existential crises. The meaning of life wasn't a question, it was survival, family, duty, God. But you have time. You have leisure. You have the luxury of asking, what's the point? And nobody has a good answer. You're living in systems designed to exploit your psychology, apps engineered to be addictive, algorithms that feed you anger because anger drives engagement, attention economy where your consciousness is the product being sold. Your ancestors faced external enemies. You face enemies that look like entertainment, that feel like connection, that promise fulfillment while systematically making you more miserable. And you can't just opt out, because these systems are how you work, socialize, learn, exist in modern society. It's like being told to just stop breathing polluted air while living in a factory.
So yes, by historical standards, this is the best time to be alive. And by experiential standards, it might be the hardest. Because your ancestors' suffering had clarity. Hungry? Find food. Cold? Make fire. Enemy? Fight or flee. But what do you do when the enemy is formless? When the threat is meaninglessness itself? When you have everything and nothing simultaneously? What do you do when you realize that maybe this is just what being human feels like? In any era, in any circumstance. So let's review, shall we? We almost went extinct before we started. We survived ice ages that should have killed us. We invented civilization and made ourselves miserable in new, creative ways. We built empires on the backs of slaves. We died by the millions from diseases, wars, disasters. We've been conquered, enslaved, burned, drowned, frozen, starved, and murdered for all of recorded history and most of unrecorded history, too. And here you are. Look at you. You made it. Against odds that should have been impossible, you're here. Every single ancestor you have survived long enough to pass something forward. Through ice ages and plagues, through wars and famines, through every conceivable form of horror, they persisted. And they did it for you. Not intentionally. Most of them didn't know you'd exist. But effectively, yes. They survived so you could have this moment, this breath, this chance to be conscious and confused and trying your best.